This teaching is on adopted children. You know, again, I used to be the assistant director at Miracle Hill Children's Home, and as the assistant director there, we had a lot of the children there were adopted. And Lorjan and I became foster parents so that from time to time we could bring a child from the children's home into our home overnight or for the weekend or as long as we wanted to. And there was an expectation that we had that when we brought one of these children here, that they would really be appreciative of us extending our home to them. And I think that most parents who adopt a child have that expectation, that the child is really, really going to appreciate the fact that you have offered your home and that you're sacrificing your time and your money and you're willing to accept them as your own biological child. And a lot of adopted parents are really shocked when that doesn't happen. They're very surprised, and they haven't been prepared for that to happen. And because adopted children are children whose parents have given them away, have a fear. And the fear is that they'll be rejected again. This is one of the worst things that can happen to a human being, is to be rejected, or at least perceive that you are rejected for who you are. Because when this child is in a children's home, they may not really know the real circumstances behind it. They may never know. They just know that mom is not there, dad is not there, and now they have to come into their own reality, which may not match reality. And they've got a helper out here called the evil one who's talking into their mind and helping them to come to the reality of why they're there. And these lies are being formed in their mind because most children, when they're in pain, they personalize it and they make it about self. Something's wrong with me. I'm not lovable. I'm the wrong sex. I shouldn't have been born. I have no worth. I have no value. Now, these are things that's normal for adopted children to have. And then if there's been abuse and they've been removed from the home, then this abuse is still there also. And they kind of expect you to treat them in the same way. And you're going to be tested to see if you will. Most adopted children have a true identity crisis. They may not even know who their mother or father is. They have no past. They don't know who they are. And there's no one there to tell them as a parent, I'm proud of you, you are my son, you are my daughter, this is your name, this is who we are. It's just a blank spot. And so they're in a huge identity crisis, and they have a lack of worth within them because of the lies and the conclusions that they've come to in their mind as to why their natural parents are not there. And you, the loving adoptive parents, have taken the place of the parents who they feel rejected them or gave them away or abused them. You have replaced those parents. And so there's an expectation that you're going to do the same thing. Even though you wouldn't reject them. You will love them. You won't sexually abuse them. You will embrace them and accept them. But they don't believe you. Because they have an expectation and a fear. The greatest fear they have is the same thing ever happening again. They want to avoid that same exact pain. And the only way that they'll know that you will not do the same thing is to test you, to see if you will. If I do this, and then they have these tests in their mind. If I do this, let's see how they react. They didn't reject me. Okay, well then if I do this, You still didn't reject me. The test is going to get bigger. What if I start lying? So they start telling lies. Oh, you still haven't rejected me. What if I steal? So they start stealing and lying, running away, cussing, doing all these unacceptable behaviors. And most people don't understand this. Why? Why? I'm loving this child. I'm giving them a safe environment. I'm meeting all their needs. And they show absolutely no appreciation. No, you haven't passed the test yet. And when will the test end? When you have proven to them that no matter what they do, you won't reject them. And you know what? If you don't understand this, you may never prove it to them. Because now you may start reacting with anger, frustration. What's wrong with you? You start yelling. You start screaming. Now, guess who you look like? That parent who gave them up. The parent who rejected them. Now you're proving to them, in their mind, you're going to do it. So the behavior continues. The test continues to see if you will. The only way to break through this is to pass the test in love. To not yell, to not scream, to not reject, to not push them away, to not tell them that they're bad. Again, this is difficult if you don't expect it to happen. And most adopted parents don't expect it to happen. Infants who have been given away, they may actually not accept or pull away or become stiff when you try to hold them, which may not make sense to you. They will not bond with you. Some children may seem to crave love as they've not yet let go of the parents that you've replaced. But if they have let go of them, they're not going to crave this love. This is where the test comes. So you'll see a difference. Why is this one child so loving and craving and wanting to be held all the time? Because they never have let go of the parents. They haven't let go of that bond yet. But the one who did are going to test you over and over and over. Lying and stealing is common to see what you'll do. If you have a child that was sexually abused, you want to know that. Because if they were sexually abused, watch out for the nightmare. It's coming. Because children who are sexually abused, especially under the age of 12, will probably create dissociative identity disorder, formerly known as multiple personality disorder. So you're dealing with more than that child. You're dealing with many personalities within that child, and they all have the job to test you to see if you're going to do the same thing. And if you don't know that, and you probably won't, you just may take the child back. I knew you'd do it. And now the one who you replace is really going to get it. Because now they've been rejected twice. They got to make sure that it doesn't happen again. And they're creating the scenario to be rejected, aren't they? Because every time they get taken back by a foster parent over and over and over, they're going to get worse and worse and worse, trying to see if they're going to get rejected again. Because nobody's passing the test. Characteristics of adopted children. They have a fear that you're going to do the same thing, whatever happened to them. They'll probably refuse to bond with you out of fear that you're going to do it. They're forever testing you to see if you reject them. They have identity crisis. They have a little sense of who they are. They have no value. They never feel accepted for who they are. Or they may be the opposite extreme, hanging on for dear life. Don't want you to out of their sight at all. Scared that you're going to leave. Holding on to you, holding on to your pants like you're trying to go out the door and the babysitter's there. Yelling and screaming, please don't go, don't go, don't go. Out of fear that you won't come back. They may lie, they may steal, they may be easily angered. They'd be very picky about foods. Because it could be that when they were taken away from their home, or you may see them stealing food or hiding food, because in their own home there was nothing to eat. And when there was something to eat, they got all they could at one time. And so you may see them in your home. They're taking food, they're stealing food out of the refrigerator during the night, and they're hiding it under the bed or under the pillow or in the closet or somewhere. They want to make sure that they've got something. Gorging is common for children who were starved and why they were taken. They want to get the food while they can within them. They might not know when they're going to have their next meal. They might not be appreciative of the things that you give them because the things have no value to them. It's the love, the acceptance that they're looking for. They may ask for very expensive things to see if you'll buy that, to see if they have worth. I didn't think you would. I don't have enough worth. They may be very sexually aggressive, trying to get physical touch because there was very little touch in their home. And they've learned that through sex they can be held. Most adopted children will eventually want to know who their biological parents are and will want to go on a search for it. I have known parents that have discouraged that and regretted that they did, because now they're separating the child from their biological parent. And if that child's got a choice of you or the biological parent, you're probably going to lose. You're probably going to lose. Now there's going to be an inner anger in the child because you're keeping them from knowing who they are. You're keeping them from their past. You're keeping them from an identity. So you never want to discourage the child from searching for their parent. You want to encourage that. Be part of that process. Because if you don't accept who they love and who they want to be with, they don't feel loved by you. It's causing a separation. There's a guy here that when he was about 14 years old, he was adopted. He was in here for counseling. He said, when I was 14 years old, I told my adopted parent that I wanted to look for my mother. I wanted to find out who she was. He said, my adopted mother started crying. He said, you don't love me. You don't love me. It made me feel so guilty that I wouldn't search. He said, that was so wrong. That was so selfish of her. She made it all about her. That wasn't love. That was her own insecurities. And we had to deal with it in a counseling session. These children may have a low self-esteem and think that they're the wrong sex or mistake and shouldn't have been alive, shouldn't be here, shouldn't have been born. They may have an anger at God and usually do. Why did you put me with parents who would treat me this way? Why did you put me with parents who would abuse me? Why did you bring me to this earth in these circumstances? And you'll have to deal with this. And most parents don't know how to deal with this. You know, the child doesn't understand free will. And the child doesn't understand sin. The child doesn't understand that God loves them and wants them to be here and that their parents are the ones who's in sin. They don't understand that. They don't understand free will.
Jean.
Yes, ma'am.
My nephew was adopted. My sister's second husband adopted my nephew. And as Derek got a little bit older, some of that resentment started, and you could tell he wanted to know about his dad. And Jeff sat down with him one day and said, Derek, you really are more special than any of the other children because I chose to be your dad. Yep. And sometimes I think that we need to affirm them like
yes.
that,
Yes.
And that's really helped their situation a lot. And they have a great relationship today, but it's because he made him feel special.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. And we need for that to happen. I chose you. It's really good. I didn't choose the other ones. God chose them for me. But you, I chose. You're special. Yeah. And show them that deep, deep love. Because it's all about love. They have a fear of not being loved. That's what it's all about. Yes.
In the midst of the testing that these adopted kids are giving their adopted parents, you still have to have the guidelines or house rules or whatever, and still do it in a loving way.
Yeah, that doesn't change. Well, you still have rules of the house and you have consequences. But you enforce the rules and the consequences in love. That's the key.
So there are consequences for the lying and for the
There's
stealing.
consequences to these things. I love you. The main thing is that they don't see rejection. Because that's what they're expecting, is for you to reject them. You must love them through the tests. Okay? So again, you have rules of the house and you have consequences to breaking the rules. Okay? But one of the consequences is, I'll get rid of you. You're going back to the children's room. That's what they're expecting anyway. So you just lost them right there at that point. You never threatened to take them back.
What happens when they turn 18, graduate from high school, go off to college, and then decide they don't want, they go back to bad behaviors and stuff like that and kind of distance themselves from you?
Well, you can't make them do anything. You can't make them love you. You can't make them accept you as your parents. And that may be something that is going to happen.
Do you then allow them a year later when they flunk out to come back?
Well, again, you would do like you would with any other child. Before they come back, these are the rules that you have to adhere to, and these are the consequences to not adhering to those rules. Now, it's their choice. Okay? Again, you carry out the consequences when they come back and don't adhere to the rules. Okay? But it's all done in love. We don't have to yell. We don't have to scream. We don't have to use the stern voice. We don't have to do any of those things. We do it in love. You know what, sweetie? When you came back, this is what you agreed to. You're not keeping it. I'm sorry you made the decision not to be here anymore. I'll tell you what, I'm going to give you grace this time. I'm not going to force the rule. But I'll tell you what, I want to give you one break. And if you do it again, you're going to have to leave. Or you could say 2 days, you're out, you see, but you can come back. And if you do it again, you're out for 3 weeks. And then the fourth time, you're out permanently. But it's all done in love, you see. I love you, and I want you to be here. And I hope you make the right choice and you obey the rules so you don't have to leave.
And they won't see that as rejection of you doing the same thing their parents did?
No. No, because they didn't have a choice with their parents. You're giving them the choice. They have the power. You see? You're giving them the power to make the right choice. Okay? And that's what you want to do with the little children in the house also. The same thing. They've got a choice to do what the rule is or to face the consequence of not doing it. That's why you don't have to yell. That's why the policeman doesn't come to your car and start yelling and screaming at you. He gives you a choice, you see. Sir, give me your driver's license. No, I'm not going to. Well, you have a choice. You can either give me your driver's license or I will arrest you. Now, I'm going to give you 1 minute to make up your mind what you want to do. Well, it's the same thing with your child. He doesn't have to start yelling and screaming, give me your driver's license! You don't have to do that. He's got the authority. And so you do the same thing with your children. I'm going to, this is what you're to do. I'm going to give you a couple minutes to think it over. And if you decide not to do it, this is what's going to happen. And then you come back in a couple minutes. What is your decision? I'm not going to do it. Okay. Then you know the consequences. Are you sure that's your decision?
What if they raise their voice to you and start that?
Then you can tell them, or you show them what to do when they sin against you. I don't raise my voice at you, sweetheart, and I ask you not to raise your voice at us. And we're going to make a new rule. I'm going to talk it over with your dad, and we're going to make a new rule about raising our voice in the house, and we're going to have a new consequence. But I want you to know right now, I forgive you for that. And I'm going to talk to your dad tonight, and we'll let you know what that rule is after a while. So you don't punish for a law that doesn't exist. You got to make the law first. Then you enforce it. Okay? Good question. I learned a lot of this through experience on the job. There was a cottage that had little girls in it. And one of these little girls really was attracted to me as a father figure. And I would just get near the cottage, and she'd be playing over there, and she'd, Mr. Gene, Mr. Gene, Mr. And she'd come running over to me and jump up, and I'd scoop her up in my arms, and she'd hug me and kiss on me and say, oh, I miss you, I miss you, I miss you. I spent some time with her. And I told Lord, I said, why don't we invite her to our home? Why don't we have her come over for the weekend? Let's just see how this goes. Lord just said, okay. So we invited her to her home. And she got in the car. She became very quiet. She didn't speak. No, she just laughing and cutting up and having a good time and talking. She just became very quiet. So we came into the house and we took her to the room. We said, this is your room. This is yours for the weekend. And she looked at us and says, then don't come in here. This is my room. I will shut the door. I'll let you know if you can come in. Oh. Now, what had happened here? Now, we had physically replaced the persons that had hurt her mother and her father, who had abused her. And guess where they had abused her? In her bedroom. So she's setting the boundary. This is my room, then don't come in here. There was no running and jumping in Jean's arms anymore. There was no sitting on Jean's lap. There was a distance between her and I. She acted like I didn't exist. She didn't want me to exist. I had replaced her father who had sexually abused her. You see? It's a whole different dynamic. Did I expect that? No. I learned it through experience, you see? Then I understood, I thought about that. I said, she's in a home environment. Her conscious mind goes to her subconscious mind. How do you feel at home? Feel like you're going to be violated. Feel like your privacy is going to be, feel like you're going to be sexually abused. Feel like you better shut that door. Feel like you better not let anybody in. Feel like you better not go close to that man. Everything changed. And so parents don't expect this radical change in the behavior of the child, because the child can be so jovial and loving and kind at the children's home. And they expect that same thing to come into their home, and it doesn't. A lot of times, adopted parents are so thrilled to have this child in their home, because they may have been trying to have children of their own for many, many years and couldn't have any. And so this child starts the testing, and they don't have any consequences. Because, we don't want, we love her, we want her to feel safe, we want her to feel here, there's no consequences. Well, the child begins to have no respect for the authority very quickly, because there's no consequences. Well, what if you went downtown, there's a policeman on every corner, and you could commit any crime you wanted to commit, and they just kind of look at you and smile. You're so cute. We love you. You would soon lose respect for those policemen, wouldn't you? Well, if there's no law in the home and there's no consequences to bad behavior, they soon learn to have no respect for you either. And the behavior gets worse and worse and worse. Now, how do you help these children? It's hard. Especially if you don't understand this. You help them with love. It was the lack of love, or the lack of perceived love by them, that caused all the testing. And you have to love them through it. You can't yell at them through it. You can't scream at them through it. You can't punish them through it. You got to love them through it. And it's done very gently. So they got to know what the rules are. The rules have to be fair. They have to be included in the negotiation processes of the consequences. And the consequences need to be enforced, always with grace, trying not to give the max. And you never raise your voice, yell and scream, and call them names and tell them they're bad. That's how you help them. And when you do something that shouldn't be done, you ask them to forgive you, because you want their heart to open to you. So when you do make that mistake, and you probably will, because you're going to become impatient because you're trying to do everything you can and you get frustrated and you may yell. And when you do what's right and go to the child and say, that was wrong. I shouldn't have done that. I yelled at you or I called you a name. Would you forgive me? And that child's going to go, wow. Never seen that before. Never seen that before. And little by little by little, the child's heart can open to you because you are becoming safe. Never threaten to give them back. That's what they expect you to do. Never make a statement like that because you may never recover from it. One time telling you, I'm going to take you back if you don't change your behavior. That behavior is going to change, and it's going to get a lot worse, not better.
What happens if they become a threat to other children in the family?
All right, we need to make a new rule. Okay, if they become a threat to other children in the family or family members, if there wasn't a rule about that, then we make a rule. Okay, now if they're making threats and other people are in danger, that may change that. I will take you back. Okay, now I don't want to take you back. Okay, but I don't want to take you anywhere. I want you to stay here. But that's the one thing, or that could be, because these are two things, or there could be three things that will cause you to not be able to stay here anymore. We don't want you to go away. We don't want to take you back. And we're asking you to please don't do that anymore, because if you do that, that means you've made the decision to leave. You made the decision to leave. You see, that's a different conversation, isn't it? You made the decision to leave. Now we'll have to be the one that transports you there, but we're not taking you back. You made the decision to not be here anymore. I hope that you don't make that decision, that you don't do those things anymore. Did that answer your question? Yeah. So you always want to give them the choice. This is the choice. If you do that, this is what's going to happen. And don't make it an immediate. What's your choice? What you going to do? No. Give them some time to think it over. Because you don't want them to make that choice out of anger. Because it's probably going to be the wrong choice. It's going to be an emotional choice. Sweetheart, I love you. That's not acceptable. You can't take a hammer and hit your sister in the head. Even when you're mad. Okay? You can't do that. If you do that, then that's caused that you've made a choice to leave here, because we can't treat each other that way in a family. I don't want you to make the choice to leave. We want you to stay here. So if you pick up a hammer, you can't even pick a hammer up anymore. This is what will happen if you pick a hammer up. Then you'll lose TV for 3 days, whatever. You see? So now they have a choice to pick the hammer up and lose TV, or pick the hammer up and go towards sister and make the choice to leave. But it's their choice now. You haven't taken them back. You didn't reject them. They made a choice to not be there. And they may make that choice.